in terms of performance, we've yet to see final numbers, but we have done some benchmarking and some stress testing. And for each frame, we're doing this smart contract transaction that gets submitted and validated. 35 times per second, which we're doing in real time. So, that's one sort of absolute number that you have there. But what we figured out is, hey, Hydra can easily do this. So you can put more people into a single head and run parallel gaming sessions in a single head. Again, the point of the real strength of Hydra and state channels in general is that whatever throughput you happen to get in a single head, you can spin up as many heads as you want, right? In parallel. So if you're able to actually make use of that feature, the scaling potential is, I wouldn't say infinite, but it's it is kind of uncapped in a way.
What's up, Beta Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central. My name's Fareed. As a part of today's video, we're sitting down with Trim Brusette, longtime friend of mine here on the channel. He's also joined me here for multiple live streams to talk about, number one, his brand new position at IOG, number two, Hydra, and the number three, Doom, a classic being rebuilt here on Cardano. Without any further ado, let me bring him up here. Trim, welcome up. How are you?
Hey, Fareed. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making time here. It's always a pleasure seeing you. You've got some new boots, so we're going to be talking about that here at IOG. And then we've also got the release of Doom running on Hydra. How are you feeling, man?
I'm feeling very, very good. Exhausted, but very good. And also super excited about Ray Revo. It's going to be a blast.
And you and I have collaborated multiple times, but this is the first time that we're seeing, or at least getting an in-depth view, right, to not only Hydra, but a really, really awesome demo that you guys have been able to put together to show the community how important and how impactful this piece of software is. So without any further ado, Trim, can we get a little bit of background just about you and sort of your travail, right, at IOG?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really good to be back and actually representing IOG for once, right? Because I've been here sort of as a Cardano community member a couple of times, but it's really nice to sort of be in my own role at this time. So very short about me. I'm Trim. I'm a product manager for Hydra starting today. I've been in IoT for a little while now. And for the last couple of months, I've been working on a little project that, there's been a couple of teasers. And it's basically running Doom on blockchain. There you go. That's the landing page. So, in a matter of a couple of weeks at Rare Evo, the event that's going to happen in Las Vegas, we're going to take that page and we're going to be releasing something really, really cool. So, I'll give you the very quick sort of recap about the project. But a couple of months ago, I posed the question: is it possible to run Doom on blockchain? And here we are. The answer is yes, in a way. But an important question is, what does that even mean, right? Like running Doom on the blockchain, sort of what does that actually entail? And in this case, I've seen I actually did some research. Like, has anyone done this before? Because if you don't know, taking the Doom game engine and doing what's called a source port, like actually making it runnable on a different platform, re-implementing it in a different language. Like, the original Doom was written in C. There's a Python version. There was even an attempt at a Haskell version at some point. That's become sort of a gauntlet or a challenge of sorts for software developers. And it's even come to the point where one of these Doom modders actually coined the term that it's the computer science's most violent Hello World replacement. And I think that's just such a fitting description, because if you have something that is able to run code, then the question is, can it run Doom? And now we had the opportunity to settle that question when it comes to blockchain, and in particular on Cardano. So I'll I'll explain a little bit about sort of the setup first, and then we can get into Hydra, which is sort of the tech that sort of enables this, that actually makes this possible. And we can explain a little bit about Hydra or what that is. But in essence, what we did is for each frame of the game, so every time, 35 times per second, the game progresses one frame, and the game state is updated. So the character moves, or you fire a shot, or you pick up an item, or you do any of these end tasks that you can do, including all of the monsters and the maps and all of this stuff that is in the game. For each frame, we're taking the user input and we're running it through a set of smart contracts that validate that the yeah, there you go, that the new game state that you're proposing is actually valid. So as you can see, this player moving around, right? Like he's opening doors, he's shooting at enemies, moving back and forth. You can see down on that little bar there, the ammo goes down when he actually fires shots, things like that. And every time, the game updates, which is, again, 35 times per second in the Doom case, we're running all of this through a set of smart contracts that actually validate that the input and the game transition was valid. And we're doing this in real time, right? So this is all happening in real time. Now, most blockchains have, block times that are at least a couple of seconds, in some cases a couple of minutes. So, it wouldn't be possible to do this in real time, because you would have to sort of submit one transaction and then wait for the next block and then do the next transaction. But that's where Hydra comes in, which is, one of the scaling solutions for Cardano. So before we, maybe we can go a little bit into what Hydra specifically is. I saw that you had some explainer, and then maybe I can sort of break it down with a simple analogy.
Yeah, you've got it. I'm going to leave this up here for just a second, and then I'll move over into the state channels diagram. But could you maybe just touch on, some of the basics here? I see there's a mention of security, so I'd love to hear, about what Hydra's able to do from that sense,
Mhm.
speed, and then maybe explain, what does the word isomorphic even mean, number one, and then how does that play into state channels in Hydra?
Yeah, for sure. So this is the landing site for the Hydra protocol. So the URL is hydra.family. I didn't even know that was a domain, but it is, and it's this is where you find all the information about Hydra, all of the developer documentation, and a lot of use cases and explainers. So if you're interested in learning more about Hydra, visit hydra.family. But to quickly recap about Hydra, and these 3 points that you have here. The secure part is because this is, as all of the sort of major product development done by IoG, it's very well researched, right? This is based on peer-reviewed research, which is then implemented into code and protocols. So the security of the Hydra head actually stems from the security of the Cardano network itself. So if you trust you don't even have to trust, but the security model of Cardano is sort of translated into Hydra with a couple of design decisions. It is a state channel, which means that it's operated by a set of actors, presumably you being one of them, which means that as long as there's one honest actor, and if you're an actor in this head, presumably you would be honest, then the system in itself is guaranteed to be secure. And it has a couple of securing mechanisms that sort of always allows you to sort of, if anything goes wrong, you're able to put on the brakes if you have to. The state channel has a much smaller set of participants. The consensus mechanism in the state channel is kind of different, which means that it's a lot quicker. Which gives you a lot of it's not just the transaction, that the transactions are, you can submit transactions quickly and sort of have them verified, but it's also that the finality of those transactions are instant. So as soon as all the participants have actually signed a transaction, it's considered final in the head, which is something that you typically don't have on the main network, where you have to wait for a little bit for finality to really kick in, to prevent something called rollbacks. Whereas in the payment channel, if all the participants have signed off on something, it's valid and it's final. And the I've seen various benchmarks, but sort of broadly speaking, the actual speed that you're able to submit and validate transactions that get put into a Hydra head is much quicker because it's not limited by this 20-second block time.
So, Trim, you've basically broken down what Hydra is from a technical perspective. That's great. A lot of my personal viewers aren't too technical. I heard that you've got a really nice analogy to sort of summarize this and really make this click for people. So, if you could share that with us, I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially for my part, I have a reasonably technical background, but I really it becomes a lot more real when you have something much more tangible to sort of understand it with, like a tool to understand it. And in the Hydra case, for a Hydra head, an analogy that I like to use is that of an airplane. So if you imagine an airplane, you roll it out onto the rollway, and you're able to load in cargo and crew. So the crew are the people that are going to be operating the plane, doing various tasks. And then the cargo is, sort of the stuff that you're actually transporting. The analogy here drives on the participants in the head and the UTXOs that you bring into the head. And while you're on the main, so sort of the ground in this case is like the Cardano mainnet. And then when the plane takes off, you open the head and you're able to do a lot of stuff while it's in transit, independent of what happens on the ground. So, there can be a lot of traffic on the ground, there can be no traffic on the ground. It doesn't really matter at all. What happens inside the plane is completely separate from that. And what you're actually able to do inside the Hydra head is you can take the cargo and you can move it around. You can open up the UTXO, switch assets around and everything, as long as it's all signed off by everyone sort of on board. And you can run smart contracts and do much more complicated things in here than just sort of shuffling stuff around. In addition to that, you can also sort of take orders from outside. So imagine you have like a radar or like a walkie-talkie. So you can actually talk to someone on the ground and they can give orders, they can give updates, they can sort of ask the crew to do certain things for them, which in this case would be kind of like a hosted head is what you call this. And essentially what happens is, as you transit, you do all of these different updates and transactions. At the end, when you're in a place where you're able to land back on the ground, the only thing that really matters when you land is the end state, right? So what does the actual cargo look like when you arrive? That's the important part. So you can have shuffled things around once or 10 million times while you're sort of in the air. It doesn't matter, right? Like the only thing that really matters is the end state, right? That's what gets distributed. So in this case, for example, the important part that happens sort of in flight is all of the individual frames and all of this stuff that happens in the Doom game. That's not really important, right? Like you don't need to bring all of that into individual transactions on the mainnet. The thing that really matters is you have all of the smart contracts validating that yes, the game that you actually played was valid, it was correct, it was done correctly, all of the game transitions that you submitted follow the game engine's rules, and the basically the final score that you got, right? So how the time that it took you to complete the level, the percentage of kills that you got in the Doom case, and items that you found and secrets, etc. So at the at the end screen of a game of Doom, you have this sort of list of stuff that comes up, which includes these things, and that's really the thing that matters, right? So what you could do with something like this is you could set up something like a leaderboard, right? So that at the end of a game session, you take the stats for each individual player or for that session, and you rank it on like a leaderboard. And then you could have, for example, prizes as one of the UTXOs that goes into the head. And then you can have a sort of distribution scheme that says, okay, when you close the head, take the leaderboard and give this prize to the top 3 people on the leaderboard, for example, in this kind of distribution, like 50% to the winner and then 30% and 20%, something like that, right? So you can do these kinds of more sort of, if you put it into a product, Hydra can actually do a lot of things for you, and the good thing is you don't have to worry about all of this, all of the individual frames and everything. The good thing is, because of the smart contracts you were able to execute, you have this sort of assurance that yes, this was a valid game session, but the sort of overarching endpoint is, yes, you had a very high assurance games in multiple sessions inside of a single head. And then at the end, you had a leaderboard with automatic, uncensorable distribution of prizes at the end. So it's really, blockchain isn't just kind of, it's not just an eye candy in a way. It does add some things. It's not completely fraud proof, right? Nothing really is, but it does give you some more assurance, and it is, on both the side of the gamer, but also in the case of competitive games, the competition organizer, right? Like you have this sort of mutual trustlessness in a way that's assured by blockchain. So of course, who's operating the head is a different question, etc. But anyway, that's a very long-winded and sort of a tangential way of explaining what Hydra is through this airplane analogy. So I've heard a lot of different sort of narratives and misunderstandings, right, of what it is. One thing is that I've heard is, it's just a thing that you connect to your stake pool, and it makes it 1,000 times faster, which just isn't the case, right? Like the state channels, they are sort of these separate little bubbles that are completely sort of isolated from the chain, but they can be settled back on the chain. And one of the cool things is you can have as many as you want. So if you're able to parallelize your application, you can spin up as many heads as you want, and each individual head is pretty performant, as we're showing with this game. But the really, really powerful part of Hydra is, if you're able to sort of split your application in this way, you can have 10,000 heads running simultaneously, right? There's no real limit to the number of heads, which is sort of where the real scaling part comes from. So yeah, that's a bit of rambling about Hydra, but I hope that kind of explains a little bit better what the product actually is and sort of what it enables you to do.
Yeah, I think you did a wonderful job breaking that down. There's not a lot of tech people that are able to simplify things to the way, or to the extent that you are able to do so. What I really liked about the analogy is, again, it made it click for me in really trying to understand not just what state channels and Hydra is, but also understanding the different types of scaling options that we have available as well. So I've had Philip DeSaro on the channel here with, I want to say it's George, who actually worked at M Labs. Who's developing something called Hydra Zoa, which is basically aiming to make Hydra a little bit more flexible, right? Because I think right now it's still somewhat of a rigid product, right? There's sort of some concrete set of rules that you have to work within. But having him on here was a blast. I learned so much. And then also having Philip on here, we were able to talk about ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, and a bunch of different solutions that they're working on, including Midgard.
Yeah, just sort of shooting in when you brought up those two guys. So absolutely lovely guys. I love what they're doing. And Hydra, just sort of to draw the comparison between Hydra and Hydra Zoa, Hydra Zoa is a sort of continuation in a way of Hydra. Like it's the same principle of stake channels. But Hydra is kind of closer to the research in a way, right? Like you have this very high assurance, very sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say rigid, but it is very close to the research to ensure the security of this thing, right? Like it's very hard to do anything sort of wrong by mistake or anything like that could sort of compromise the security of a Hydra head. Whereas, one of the goals, from what I understand, of Hydra Zoa, and I'm not the one developing this product, so please, George, I don't don't come after me, but it does a lot to improve the user experience. It makes it much easier and faster to open heads and close heads, and sort of do some of these quality of life things that people were kind of maybe hoping for from state channels, which isn't necessarily what they're designed to do. But it's very useful when you're trying to design different products, which come at certain trade-offs in terms of the basic protocol that was proposed by the research. But it is a very similar sort of protocol. Like both of these fit into the category of state channels, which is a type of layer 2 scaling solution, of which there are multiple families. And you brought up the Midgard, which is an optimistic rollup, which is a different type of layer 2 scaling solution. It's more similar to ZK rollups, and then sort of side chains and these partner chains are again a third sort of category of layer 2. But the interesting thing, and that I've heard both Philip talk about, for Midgard, and which also applies to very much to Hydra and state channels, is that the EUTXO model of Cardano makes everything so much better in many cases, right? For state channels, the isomorphism, right, which was this third point on the list of things from Hydra family, the isomorphism part is comes from basically the EUTXO model. Like you can take UTXOs and you can put them inside the head. And what that means in practice is that on the main chain, they're stored in a smart contract. And then you have this node running sort of a separate thread outside of the blockchain, which then can be used to settle on the main chain. And the settlement actually means that you take these tokens that are in the smart contract, and then you split them up or sort of change the distribution according to the end state that was in the state channel. And that's the point of the sort of the isomorphism in a way. Whereas something like an account model system, this is much harder, because you have this global state where you cannot just take these UTXOs, throw them out, and do stuff with them. You have to worry about sort of the cohesive state that wouldn't be the same inside the state channel as on the main chain, especially for tokens and sort of distributions and everything. It's just a lot more tricky to sort of work with. So the UTXO model, or EUTXO model in the Cardano case, makes state channels work a lot better than on account models, similar to how they really benefit these rollup systems like the optimistic rollups and ZK rollups.
Nicely stated. I love the tech talk. I also love the game talk.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's talk Hydra and let's talk Doom.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen the sneak peek. Charles has tweeted out about it. I know you said there's big things coming out here in just a couple of weeks at Rare Evo. What can you share with us in terms of like what we can expect as a community, right? So will this be free to play? Will this be publicly available? Because I mean, you could definitely imagine a lot of people are itching to get their hands on something like this. So what are you able to tell us from that perspective? And then I got a couple of follow-up questions I also want to pose.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I don't want to spoil too much, right? There's a couple of things that I want people to kind of be surprised by. But so yes, first off, yes, everything's going to be completely free to play. We're not going to charge a dime for anything. All of the code is going to be completely open source, which is actually one of the sort of benefits of doing this. Like if implementing Doom on Cardano and for Hydra, it is fun, and it's over the top, and it's silly, but it's not without merit, right? Like all of the open code stuff that we're actually making for this is very useful for people that want to develop using Hydra. So it's not just silly, right? But for the people that are looking to, okay, what are we actually going to get here, right? So all of that is kind of part of it. There is something that you can do from home, so sort of remotely to interact with the system. And for the people that are going to be at Rare Evo at the event, there's something a lot cooler. I'm not going to spoil too much, but there's something that we're going to have at display there that's going to be very cool. I was completely amazed when I realized that I was actually able to get this done. So yes, there's going to be some really cool things for Erivo, but if you're not able to attend, don't fret. You're also going to be able to join in on this. And having said that, there's also an opportunity for anyone that wants to get involved beyond just interacting, playing the game, right? We got a lot done. I'm very impressed by how much we actually got done in time. This whole thing was kind of it's all of it is done by a very small team that is doing this sort of on the side of their actual job, with a very, 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 I cannot overstate how short the deadline for this thing actually was. We've been working at this effectively for a month and a half, sort of as a side thing, right? So but we got a lot done. And as much as we did get done, there are a couple of things we didn't quite get all the way there. So there are a few things that are open for the community to participate in. And I think people might be very excited about this, right? That there's some opportunities for developers, or some opportunities for maybe non-developers, sort of predicating that some of the extra development is done. And there's absolutely opportunity for people to submit Catalyst proposals to fund some of the continuation for this, if they're interested in actually picking this up and sort of keeping with this. But yeah, we're gonna have, or we have a Discord channel set up in the IOG Discord server. We have a channel called Hydra Doom. So I encourage, if you're interested, join that. We're going to be discussing, all of this stuff, and helping people out there that are interested in maybe participating. And there's going to be opportunities sort of after Rare Evo as well to sort of keep going a little bit with this. But yeah, so sort of join the Discord leading up to there. During the event, we're going to have this opportunity to game, and then there's going to be a lot of fun. If you consider development fun, which obviously it is. There's also going to be some non-dev things that people might be able to join in on there.
No, I was going to say, I think that just depends on your viewpoint. Some people love tech stuff and dev stuff. Some people are like, hey, keep me away from it. Just call me when the price goes up. That said, I mean, you mentioned a tight schedule, with the current product manager, right? I'm sure that development in terms of speed will be great. I'm really, really excited for you, Trim. I say that honestly. I recall bringing you on the channel, maybe a year, almost two, maybe now ago, and things have changed so much for you. I'm very, very happy and excited for you, man. Congrats
it's
on
been a
the new
journey for
position.
sure.
Yeah, no,
Thank
congrats
you.
on that. That said, I mean, we've talked about some potential opportunities for the community to contribute. You mentioned Project Catalyst. I can only imagine, what you guys are thinking on that. And I'm sure that there's going to be some sort of funding set aside to improve, enhance, and just maybe make this a little bit more accessible.
So
One,
I'm not sure if they're going to make any categories for this, right? But I absolutely think that this is one of those things that are, if you're going to submit a proposal to continue this, that there's so much that you can develop that is going to be genuinely useful for people. But by sort of putting it into this context, you're going to make it both useful and fun, right? Which is kind of the name of this project in a way, right?
and it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because with something as technical as Hydra, a lot of people have not spent the time to understand it. Now, hopefully, your analogies earlier, your explanations earlier help to sort of piece the puzzle together. But I think the best way to really get people to, number one, understand it, but the number two, be willing to even go out of the way to understand it, is by making it simple to adopt. And with Hydra and with Doom, sort of coming together, you get that nostalgic effect, but you're still using the tech, so
Yeah.
that's what I really love about what you guys have done here. I have to ask one thing. So in times past, when we've heard about Hydra, there's been a lot of numbers thrown out as to how many transactions it can process. So far, with the gameplay, with Doom, which you guys have been able to develop, could you maybe give us, some rough numbers? We won't hold you to it, but I think it'd be great to at least share what your initial results are, because I could imagine that something like Doom is beginning to sort of stress test the software.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of why I really wanted to do this as well, to show that it can, right? Like, let's be clear. This is not how you're supposed to use Hydra, right? This is not, it can be used like this, but it's not why it was designed, right? Like, it's you can use it for a lot of things, and it can be used in this sort of quick way, but it's not really meant to run a game. Like, this is a very fun project in that way, and it's like this sort of demo that you can do this, which hopefully inspires people. But yeah. But in terms of performance, we've yet to see final numbers, but we have done some benchmarking and some stress testing. And I mentioned this. Doom is a game that, because of the transistors at the time ran at 70 hertz, it ran on 35 frames per second. And for each frame, we're doing this smart contract transaction that gets submitted and validated. 35 times per second, which we're doing in real time. So, that's one sort of absolute number that you have there. But what we figured out is, hey, Hydra can easily do this. So you can put more people into a single head and run parallel gaming sessions in a single head, because 35 transactions per second in this case isn't, it obviously depends on the complexity of the transaction, and the transactions are slightly more complex than your basic just sending stuff, right? But yeah, running multiple people in a single head is absolutely possible, which sort of brings the transaction throughput pretty high. But again, the point of the real strength of Hydra and state channels in general is that whatever throughput you happen to get in a single head, you can spin up as many heads as you want, right? In parallel. So if you're able to actually make use of that feature, the scaling potential is, I wouldn't say infinite, but it's it is kind of uncapped in a way, right? There's you can really spin up as many as you want, but the challenging part here, it's kind of similar to how we went from single core with just a very high sort of throughput, like we were talking about gigahertz and sort of, oh yeah, this is so many gigahertz and this is a little bit more, to multi-thread, right? And or multi-core, right? Like quad core, 16 cores and such. And it's funny that these quad core chips, they're not more performant running single core applications. But as soon as applications were able to figure out how to sort of parallelize their actual running and execution, they were able to make use of all of these parallel cores and channels, and they could get a way better performance. And that's why we've seen this explosive growth in computer graphics. Like compare games, how they actually look graphically today to how they looked 31 years ago, right? Like Doom 1993. It's incredible, and part of that is because of this sort of parallelism, right? But it forces you as a developer to think a little bit differently. Like, okay, how do I actually solve this thing in a parallelizable setting, right? Like, how do I take this thing that I was kind of imagining as just a single application and kind of break it up into ways that make sense, and sort of organize all of these different threads if you have to, and such. So I think there's, one of the challenges with Hydra is first of all, it is a very technical thing within a very technical ecosystem already. But once you're able to sort of think in that way and sort of try and design these applications making use of that parallelizable property, that's where you really unlock the scaling potential of Hydra. So the throughput of a single head is pretty good, but that's not where the secret sauce is, right?
That was so nice. So you mentioned a nice number that was 35 frames per second. And that sounds like the minimum. And as you said, I mean, Hydra, or at least the head, wasn't even breaking a sweat. So
Yeah.
it sounds like to me, the challenge at Rare Evil will be to see how many different Doom sessions can we get running in a single Hydra head.
It really is, and one of my sort of core missions here is actually to not just sort of from the back end or back line, sort of go through the numbers and look how performant is this thing. No, I'm bringing this to the front. Like you're gonna, while you're playing, you're gonna be seeing the performance of this stuff, right? So I really encourage people to join in, try and sort of push this thing and see kind of how it performs for you, because this is this is a stress test for the system. And yeah, we're going to really highlight. It's not just because anyone can sort of put a game into a website, right? And you could just play it there. That doesn't really tell you the story of what's going on behind the scenes, right? So we're really trying to highlight so you can see, or you kind of get a sense for all of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, the performance, the transactions, all of this stuff, this traffic. And also, as I mentioned, when multiple play sessions happen in a head at the same time, you can see sort of the performance of your head, not just your session, right? But the other people contributing to this as well. And also, we're spinning up a bunch of heads, right? So we can see sort of the aggregated throughput of the whole system, not just your session, not just your head, but all the sessions across all the heads, right? Which is really, really exciting. So we're going to try and sort of highlight all of this kind of, as much as we can, within the reasons of or within the limits of what you're able to do in a month and a half.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting you back on the channel to run through some of those findings from Rare Evo. I'll be there. I'll actually be landing on the 14th, so a day early. As soon as you get there, let me know. I'm ready to get on some Doom. I'm ready to play a little bit and to really try this side. I know Charles has teased it, and I'm sure he's very excited, as well as everybody who's contributed from the team at IOG. So obviously, again, congrats to you on your new position, on what you're doing, what you're overseeing, what you've already contributed to Doom, and then everybody who's helped you along the way to get to where you are. Now, Trim, this is an introductory session. Again, I know we're going to have you back on. I've got no doubts for an additional follow-up, right? So I do want to quickly go ahead and just share the Doom link here again for everybody who's interested in joining. As Trim mentioned, make sure to jump in there. Number one, check out the Doom Hydra, excuse me. Now I'm getting Doom and Hydra mixed together. Check out the official Hydra website, but then make sure to join the Doom Discord channel, which I'll leave the link to that down below. So Trim, send us out here, man. What are your thoughts? What are you looking forward to? What are you most excited about, when it comes to launching this year that you've been working on? In the background, I'll say that, like, you guys have been working very, very silently. So I think this is going to be a huge surprise for the community. But what's got you most excited as we get ready to wrap up?
Oh man, there are so many things that I'm excited about. I don't want to spoil too much, but there are a couple of surprises that are left, and a lot of Easter eggs, right? Like it's really in the spirit of Doom. Like one of the reasons why I actually love this game is because they, first of all, they designed the game and the game engine in such a way that it really encouraged community participation and modding, right? The modding community is live today. People are still making custom maps for Doom, right? And still making custom game engines run in smart contracts, right? So it's a very live and vibrant ecosystem still, and it's something that I'm very proud to sort of have contributed to in the sort of effect that we have. But the one of the core parts of Doom is actually Easter eggs and secrets and this kind of stuff. So there are a couple of secrets and there are a lot of Easter eggs. So if you're able to attend Rare Evo, swing by the IOG booth. That's where things are going to happen. There's going to be some really cool things to look at there. Find me. I'm going to be there literally all day. I'm going to be wearing these, so I'm pretty easy to spot. And yeah, I really encourage people to join, the Discord, and sort of be a part of the journey. Sort of help pick this up after the event as well, so we can sort of the life cycle can continue, and we can really bring the full vision of this thing to life as well. What we managed to do for Rare Evo is incredible, but there's still a lot of really cool things that we had sort of planned.
All right, Trim, that'll do it here for today's interview. Really, really happy to have you on here. I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks. We're going to be hanging out there for a little bit. yeah, as you mentioned, those green glasses, extremely, extremely hard to miss. So if anybody is from the community who's out there, as soon as you spot those glasses, you've got the right guy. And then you've got the
I'll be
matching
looking
rug in
like
the
this.
back. Yeah, fits you very, very well. You've picked a persona and you have stuck with it every single day since. Like, there's never been a day off where I've seen you without the glasses or without Hosky somehow involved, when I see you. So again, thank you for your commitment, not just to IOG and to Hydra and Doom, but also to Hosky.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like, above actually being, the Hydra product manager, I'm, the unpaid Hosky intern as well.
Yeah.
That's my real job.
Poop emoji. Ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for sticking with us through this entire interview. I really, really hope you guys got some value out of this. I've got some value out of it myself, and I'm really excited to be providing you guys with more coverage and live gameplay from the actual upcoming Rare Evo event. If you guys found this to be informational, please, number one, to make sure to smash that thumbs up. Number two, consider subscribing to the channel for more additional content just like this. I'll definitely be sitting down with Trim after Rare Evo to talk about the experience and his presentations. And then last but not least, if you have any questions, if I missed any portions, or if I just maybe didn't cover everything that you guys wanted to be covered, leave a comment down below so I can make sure to ask them in our part 2 interview. That said, and as always, we'll see you guys in the next video.